and get this party started around the oval here and introduce Coach FitzGerald. Brian was at Rio Mesa for 36 years, and his boys and girls teams won 53 league championships, 7 CIF Southern Section divisional runner-up awards. 5 times they were the Southern Section champions, and in 1988 they won the girls state championship. On the female side, he is the only coach ever to do this. He's had 4 state 100-meter champions in 4 different decades. All right, on the boys' side, Brian's relays teams have been among the best in the country. They have run 40.69 for the 4x1, 125.10 for the 4x2, 314.89 for the 4x4. And last night, I mistakenly said he had 15 teams make the CIF final in the 4x1. Let me rephrase that. He had 15 teams win the 4x1 in the Southern Section Championship. So pretty impressive. 2016, it was USA Today National Girls Coach of the Year. So it is my pleasure to introduce Brian FitzGerald. Brian?
Well, thank you, Tim. Welcome, everybody. Good to be here tonight. So I'm supposed to talk about both relays, and it usually takes me about an hour and a half to do that. I'm going to try to get through this as fast as I can. But I'm not going to skip anything that's super important. I think the 4x1 is much more important than the 4x4, because the 4x4 we can talk about in 5 minutes and probably get all we need for that. So I'm going to spend most of my time there, and hopefully get to the 4x4. But if we don't get there, we don't get there. But without further ado, let me get this started. Let's see. I got to share screen first, don't I, here, Tim?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so
how
do I share screen, Tim? It's not at the top of my thing anymore.
Bottom,
start screen share. There we go. Okay, got it. All right, everybody. So 4x1, I love the relays. I love both of them. And if you're a high school track coach, you know they book in the meet. So they're super, super important, and they're really, you know, as track and field gets more and more away from the team aspect of track and field, which it does, I think, all the time. High school is the only place, you know, where you get that now. And you know, there's so many invitationals and things that we go to that aren't scored. But the dual meet and the bookending of the relays at the dual meet and having people having to work with one another gives you the team aspect of track and field. And that's a great thing. And I love the relays because of that. And, you know, they're my 2 favorite events in all of track. So I've been at it a long time. I was a terrible relay coach for a few years, and then I learned a few things, and I'm going to try to give you those things as we go along. If we don't get finished here, give me some questions, and Tim will put up my email, and you can email me, and we can talk about that later on. So here we go. We're going to start with a 4x1. As we look at this, so there's some basic things here. Obviously, we got to get the baton safely around the track as fast as possible, which has been really tough for the USA in large meets, you know, even on that level for the last couple of decades, okay, maybe 3. So, you know, we can do that as coaches, and there's some things we can do to make that easier and safer for us. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of that. So, you know, we can have a better outcome than maybe some of our national teams have had in the large competitions. So if you've been coaching a while, you know this, but I'm gonna gear it for everybody. The first and third legs are going to run in the left half of the lane, the inside half of the lane, and they receive and they hold the baton in their right hand when we're running. Okay, just a basic of relays. Why do we do that? Because the first and third legs run turns, and turns, if you're running in the outside of the lane, you're running farther than if you're running on the inside of the lane. A good rule of thumb is just to remember that the baton is going to travel down the middle of the lane. So if the first and third are going to run in the inside half of the lane and hold the baton in their right hand, guess what the second and fourth are going to do? They run straightaways, so the turn doesn't come into play. So they're going to run in the outside of the lane. It's not working for me. There we go. They're going to run in the outside of the lane, and they're going to receive and hold the baton in their left hand. Don't deviate from this. We don't want to switch hands. We don't want to do anything else. These are pretty much basics that everybody follows. There are a lot of things that you can choose to do, but these aren't one of them. So let's look at the next slide here. Last year, Okay, this is what our relay zones look like. Tim, how do I take my face off my own thing? Can I just do that? Oh, there we go. Okay. So last year, this is what our relay zones look like, and almost every track in California has this setup at this point. But as you know, or as you should know, you might not know yet, this is not what we do anymore. We had an acceleration zone, we had an exchange zone. Acceleration zone was 10 meters long, exchange was 20. We had a total of 30 meters. I want you to remember that number, 30 meters, because it's really important when we start talking about where we're going to pass a baton. But this is no longer our setup. This year, we have eliminated the acceleration zone. So there is no acceleration zone. There is just a 30-meter exchange zone. We have a passing zone that's 30 meters long. Now, on the tracks you go to, they'll probably still have that little acceleration zone, but you could take the baton at the little triangle if you wanted to do that. I hope you don't want to do that, but you could do that. So before, that would have been a disqualification. You'd have to have 10 meters of acceleration before you get into the passing zone. So new relay zone, remember that. You can get the baton anywhere. There'll be less disqualifications because we have a new relay zone, but I think teams are going to run slower, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit in a few minutes. Okay, this is what we need to understand, acceleration curve. So really important that we understand how our kids accelerate and how fast the baton is moving with them as they accelerate. So if we look here at 10 meters in, we're going 60% of top speed, more or less, on that curve. At 0, we're going 0. If we look down here at 0, we're going 0. But our first few strides, our first 6 or so strides, we're going to be up at least 60% and maybe a little higher than that, depending on the kids and how old they are and how good they are at accelerating, et cetera. Okay, at 20 meters in, now remember we have a 30-meter exchange zone down here, right? We'll talk about that in a second. But at 20 meters in, we're probably at around 85, maybe coming close to 90% of top speed. And at 30 meters, we're at either top speed or very close to top speed as we come in. Now, again, that varies and we can't be specific without knowing our personnel. But keep that in mind and know how fast we're running this, because what I want to do now is I want to overlap 2 of these. I want to overlap 2 of these curves, and I'm going to put the number 2 runner right down here, okay? Because that's where the number 2 runner is gonna line up. All right, that's what we do. So if you look at this, and there's our 30-meter exchange zone, this curve is the incoming runner, okay? Let's just say that's number 1, and this is your runner number 2, this curve here. And these dotted curves are still your number 2 runner, but the number 2 runner is doing something differently, and see if you can figure out what the number 2 runner has done differently to alter that acceleration curve, okay? But at any rate, we have these overlapped. You can see on the track where our passing zone is now. There's no acceleration zone. And what if we got to here and we made our pass 5 meters into the exchange zone, an early pass, that's safe, right? We want to be safe. We want to make sure we're safe. So we want to we want to do that. Do we want to do that and make sure we're safe because this next person is fast? Well, probably not, because look at the possibility of the speed of the baton at this point, and look at the deceleration in the baton that would have to happen if we made the exchange right there. We're going from here down to here. It's not a good thing, right? We want the baton to be as fast as we can. So we don't want a super early pass, even though that would be very safe. Unless that's your last resort, it's not something you want to do. Now, what if we're in, 10 meters into the zone? Okay. Or yeah, I guess that's about 10 meters in. Let's look at it. We're going to be about 60% or maybe a little more than that. Now the baton decelerates a whole lot less. So we're not losing all this time and having to re-accelerate it back to this point. Okay. So the deeper we're going in, the faster we're moving. We're not having to go way down here slow and re-accelerate. What if we do it 25 meters into a 30-meter zone? If you look at that, we're at 80 or 90%. Here we have a very small decrease in baton speed because our two runners are close to being at the same speed. And in the best of all possible worlds, if we get past it right there and we knew we were going to do it before we would go out, that might be the place to do it, depending on your personnel. 30 meters in, because this runner is close to top speed and this runner, is decelerating down, and we're at 95 or 96% of top speed there. So I hope you're with me there. I think the one thing you can see here is that, and the one thing you have to take away from that is an extremely early pass is a bad pass, even though it might look beautiful. It's a bad pass because we're losing time there. Okay, so 2 cardinal rules of the relay. There's our exchange zone, again, 30 meters long. The outgoing runner always sets up at the very beginning of the exchange zone. So I put 2 little feet there. That would be your number 2 runner, okay? 2 little feet there, and we're going to use the entire exchange zone. Okay, the reason we want to do that is because, well, let me go back here. I wonder if I can go back. I wanted to show you this too. Okay, these lines here, this second line, this second dotted line here would be an example of a runner setting up standing, an outgoing runner standing 10 meters into the acceleration zone. And if you'll look there, if we move up, this runner, no matter how fast this runner is here, is going to be moving slower at any given point during the zone because they've wasted 10 meters of acceleration. Okay, so we want to make sure that we don't move anybody up in the zone to anywhere. Even if they're a slow kid's going to be faster if he or she has more acceleration. Okay, so let me move forward again quickly here. Second thing we're gonna talk about is the baton exchange should occur at near 20 meters into the zone. Okay, that would be the middle of the old zone. We want to be near 20 meters into the zone because we will have accelerated to at least 85% with the outgoing runner and maybe even a little more than that. Okay, so there's where we're talking about. You want to make it now towards the end. That's the middle of the old zone. If you're really good, might want to push it a little further, okay? If you practice it a lot, and especially if the incoming runner is faster than your outgoing runner, it would be a leg where you could push the pass deeper into the zone. And your incoming runner, who's really fast, would get to run a little further, okay? So here we are, middle of the zone. How do we know where this is? Well, we know where this is on the track because there's always a mark on it on a high school track. In the first exchange zone, it's at the 300-meter hurdle start. At the second exchange zone, it's at the 200 start. And at the third zone, it's at the 100-meter start. So you always have a mark here to know where that pass, around where that pass should be taking place. If it's taking place down here, you're giving up time. And to re-accelerate a baton when you haven't gotten your acceleration up would take even longer. So the pass itself, after you're accelerated to almost top speed, is much, much better because you don't have to re-accelerate as much. You don't have to go back to those acceleration mechanics as much. So I hope you're with me. When do we know when to go? We're talking about the outgoing runner. There's our exchange zone. Here's where we're set up. And we're going to measure back 16 to 24 heel toe steps. Okay, now that's a huge difference, right? That could be 8 steps difference. And some kids have big feet and some kids have little feet. That number depends on your personnel. And we'll talk about that a little bit, okay? This point varies so that the runners are gonna mesh at the proper spot down here. So this never varies where the feet are set up. This point will vary. This point here will vary between 16 and 24 so that we make the runners mesh 20 meters in where we want them to mesh coming in. Okay, so 16 to 24 steps. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna measure back 4 more. We're gonna create a little thing which we call the go patch. So instead of having a microscopic little piece of tape on the track, we're gonna make a box within that lane. So we have at least a 2-dimensional area where we can see the runner come into so that we know when to take off. So we make a go patch right there. And the outgoing runner, this person here, is going to leave as the incoming runner enters the go patch here. Okay. Now, JV kids, JV girls, youth kids, they might be more like 16 steps. I've actually had 26 steps at times, because I've oftentimes run my fastest kid first and had a slow accelerator here, and we pushed it towards the end of the zone and we meshed a little bit deeper. So that's why this varies. You want to mesh at least 20 meters in, right at around 20 meters. Okay, so you can see this. If this is the second runner, the incoming runner is going to be in the inside of the lane. This runner's on the outside of the lane, so we can make a pass. But look at that diagonal. What's going to happen if the inside runner is on the inside, or the incoming runner is on the inside lane of the track? They're going to tie up. They're going to lock feet. So we don't want to run across the lane. We want to stay in the outside of the lane just to make sure that we have room to make our pass. And we're not going to tangle legs. But I'm going to show you a time when you might want to do this in a little while here. Okay, outgoing runner, you can stand or you can crouch with feet pointing down the track, left foot forward, right foot back. This young lady's about ready to get into a set position. She's not there yet, but she would come up into a position kind of like this. Notice that the feet are pointing straight down the track like you would when you want to start fast. You're not facing the inside of the track. The feet aren't pointing at the curb. They're facing down the track, so we can start and get the best start we can and accelerate as rapidly as we can. Some kids can't do this, and they got to look kind of upside down and they get disoriented. And actually, I had a good boys team where a couple of my runners didn't like the feel of looking back, out of that position. And we went to a stand-up start in the relay, and we rolled into that stand-up start so we could, cheat acceleration there. So it was like a lean, 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 go, when the incoming runner hit the go patch. And I think prefer the standing start. I think it's more consistent. And the leaning part of that very slow lean before you take off, makes for a much more consistent takeoff. You're leaving at the right time rather than being stiff and tight and trying to explode without having any forward motion going with you there. So I would, no matter what I did, I'd beat acceleration and I would try to lean in as I'm the outgoing runner and take off as the runner comes in. All right, outgoing runner continued. Always line up in the outside of the lane. What's different there? We know that number 3 needs to be on the inside of the lane because number 2 is going to be on the outside of the lane. So why do I have always lines up on the outside of the lane? Well, the reason that I do is this. If we put everyone on the outside of the lane, then we can move people around and nobody gets confused. They know they're all lining up there. The third leg can line up on the outside of the lane and then run the tangent to the inside of the lane before the pass occurs. This just makes sense to me because what do we do in the 200 over there where the third leg begins if we're starting on a turn? We line our blocks up at an angle, so we run the tangent. It takes care of not trying to start running on a curve as we do that. It also lets us line up the same way wherever we go, and we'll be there, and the pass can still take place. And that was that diagonal line that I showed you before. You could, if you'd like to, run your third person that way. The reason that I don't put my third person on the inside is because then you got to look back away from the track. And I think you get disoriented a little bit as you're looking back, and the first step is off when you do that. When you're looking to the inside of the track and lined up in the outside of the lane, I think your first step is better. You know where your tangent is, and you can run straight there. So that's a reason that I do that. So when the other runner hits the go patch, we're already leaning, right? We're getting a little lean. Torso comes in, boom, we're off. Okay, starting with confidence, we're going to accelerate smoothly and powerfully. We're not going to be tentative. Okay, we're not going to take little choppy steps. We're just going to accelerate smooth and powerfully. We're going to extend a soft, steady hand on a verbal or visual cue. So the verbal cue, that the ubiquitous verbal cue that's used throughout is, everybody saying it right now, right? What is it? It's stick. Okay. Well, I would say if you're going to use a verbal cue, use something other than stick, because if you're at a big meet and there are people next to you, or even a dual meet, the chances that the teams you're running against are going to say stick as well, and it might confuse your outgoing runner. So you could say anything as long as it's a single syllable. Make it easy. You could say hand. You could say go. Don't say stop or wait. because if you do that, then the other team might stop or wait, and the other coaches might not be happy with you. I've had that experience before, and had to talk to my kids about how that wasn't very sportsmanlike. So anyway, if you're going to do a verbal cue, make it single syllable, and probably don't make it stick. Now, visual cue, what did I tell you that it gives us a marker for where we should be making that pass? There's a line in the middle of each zone on every track. So you could, if you practice enough at your school doing this, you could just know when the hand's going to come back to be able to make the pass at that line. So the hand had come back a stride or so before the line, and the pass is made at the line, and off we go. So you don't really have to have a verbal cue if you don't want one, but a visual cue takes more practice than a verbal cue does. Okay. All right. Okay. The outgoing runner's got to grasp the baton after it's placed in his or her hand. The problem is if we're using a verbal cue and we say, or actually I'm talking about the incoming runner right now. If we're going to talk about grasping the baton after it's placed in your hand, that means you let the baton hit your hand and you don't feel around for it. You don't want that hand moving around in any direction, because then the incoming runner doesn't know where to put it. And that's a lot of the time that's what happens. There's panic and the outgoing runner has to stop or the pass doesn't get made. So wait till it hits your hand if you're the outgoing runner. And after you feel it, then grasp it. Okay. And then you don't look back unless you're going out at the end of the zone and nobody's there. Okay. So really never look back. If you've taken off too quickly, the incoming runner needs to have an emergency a verbal cue, something like no. Okay. Or, again, don't say stop or wait. That's not good, but you could say no, or red or whatever you wanted to do there. But, you shouldn't be looking back to know if you're in the right spot or not, because that'll stop your acceleration. Okay, incoming runner. Incoming runner's got to push through the zone and catch the outgoing runner. Okay, that's the job. You've got to catch the outgoing runner. And you don't want to slow down, because we don't want that baton to slow down, right? Remember the acceleration curves? We don't want to flatten that curve out and start slowing down when we don't have to slow down. So we've got to work a little bit on speed endurance, because everyone except for the first runner is running how far? How far are we going? Well, the first runner, if we pass with 20 meters left in the zone, is running 100 meters. But everybody else, okay, is going to be running 120 meters, because we're using the entire zone there. We're going to have 20 meters of acceleration before we hit that mark that makes us run 100 meters. Okay, so we have to work a little bit on speed endurance. Running a relay is not like running 100. Running a relay is, kind of like running a 200. Not that much, but there are times when you can relax a little bit and not decelerate. Give up a few 100ths of a second by relaxing within the leg, and then make up for that by being strong at the end and running through the pass. Okay, you give the verbal cue at the appropriate time. Okay, so whenever that is, when you're, it's not when you run right up on them. It's a little bit before you're going to be able to make the pass, and the verbal cue goes then. Hand comes back, and you've got to do that at the right time. You can't wait until you're right there. You have to do it just a little bit before. And extends a baton at the appropriate time, because if you extend the baton when you give the verbal cue, you're running like the Statue of Liberty for a couple of strides. And that slows everything down, and that's not where we need to be. So the verbal cue is for the outgoing person, not for the person who's saying it. But I've had plenty of kids who say, go, and put the baton out as soon as they say go. No, you have to say go and take at least one arm pump and wait for that hand to come back, and then put the baton out at that time. Extend the baton at that time. All right. The other thing you got to do is maintain speed in the zone after the pass. The reason we want to do that is, what if we don't make the pass and we're already easing off? Okay, then we're in a lot of trouble. So we make the pass, and we're going to chase our runner out of the zone after that, just in case something happened. We're not slowing down, and we can try again as we're going along. You're going to stay in the lane until all other teams have passed, because if you get out and interfere with anyone else, you will be disqualified and you will screw up their race as well. So we got to stay in our lanes and then look behind us before we leave our lanes. And oh, okay, here we go. Psychology of running in the zone. So every kid's going to run as fast as they can. Okay. But the three most important places are those 330-meter zones and what we do there. And what we want out of that is for the baton not to slow down. We want to keep minimal slowdown of the baton while we're in those zones. And I showed you how if the pass occurs early in the zone, that the baton goes from highly accelerated to, real low, back down to maybe, 30, 40, 50% of top speed. If you made the baton one step in, that's almost going back down to zero. So we have to make sure we want to, we go late into the zone when we do this. But if we're going to go late into the zone, the incoming runner's got to come in with the idea of catching and maybe even passing the outgoing runner. So they must realize that any slowing is going to result in a bad exchange. We don't want to slow that baton down. And so speed endurance, again, becomes critical. We talked about that. You're running 120 meters, not 100 meters. You've got to run through that. And actually, you want to be able to run 130 meters fast out the end of that zone. So we don't want to relax mentally. And I think the cue for this, for any incoming runner, for us anyway, is push. Push through the zone, okay? Outgoing runner must accelerate smoothly and powerfully without hesitation. We talked about that, right? If the slower that we accelerate, the slower we will be when the baton gets there. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can, like leaning into our start and our takeoff to make us be going as fast as we can when we mesh. So we don't want to interrupt that. We don't want to look back. We just want to make sure that we just smoothly and powerfully do that and we don't hesitate. Types of exchanges. Okay, here's where it gets controversial. All of that, and I hope you're with me here, all of that is pretty basic. And once you understand that an early pass is not ideal, now here we come into where you're going to make some choices that are going to affect you. Okay, so overhand down sweep pass was the most popular thing that we did for years in the United States. Okay. So up until the year 2000, most high school teams and colleges were using the overhand down sweep pass, and U.S. national teams used it. And the advantage of that pass, it's a supposed advantage of that pass, was you gain some free distance with full arm extension from the incoming runner and the outgoing runner. And I'll show you some examples of that. Usually we'll have demonstrators that can show you what a down sweep pass looks like, but I'll show you some pictures in a second. Next is the push pass. It's your second choice. It's a variation of an overhand pass, and it's used by USA, Jamaica, Great Britain, Canada. Many teams use the push pass, but there are several teams that are very good teams that don't. The advantage of that pass would be there's less alteration of sprint mechanics because you don't have to extend your arms and run with them extended for a long time. And supposedly we can push that baton forward, which is interesting. Pretty much a myth, but we can push that baton forward like this, okay, into the hand of the person going out and accelerate it as we get there. That's what I've been told, okay? Don't think that's the truth. The baton moves with the people, okay, and you can't accelerate it between two people. All right, and the last one I want to talk to you about is the underhand upsweep pass. Now, if you're a track fan and you've been watching international track and field, you know that the Japanese use this pass and they're very good, okay? And the Russians used to use it back during the Cold War, and the East Germans used it. And the unthinkable happened at one point back in the 90s when France broke the world record and took the 4x1. France beat the USA and took our world record away, and they used an underhand pass. And that's kind of, you start thinking about that. What did they do? And we'll talk about it a little bit. Advantages of an underhand pass: sprint mechanics are maintained, and I'll show you pictures of that. and it's safe. Remember, we talked about we got to be safe. So if it's safe, we can pass a little bit later, and it's easy. It's not hard to do it. In fact, it looks like something you might be doing in grade school, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. Okay, so here's a USA push pass in the rain, the national team practicing. You can see here that Allison Felix has her arm completely extended. Now, if this were a down sweep pass, the baton would be coming from the top. This runner would come over the top and place it down, just like the arrow's going there into the hand. That would be a down sweep. But she's going to push straight ahead with that baton. She's going to push that baton straight ahead. And that's way better than coming down, because she doesn't alter her running mechanics by making this big sweeping down sweep motion here. She can push that in. Now, I'm going to argue that it's hard to run more than one step fast like this. So anytime that this arm is back here and you're trying to run with that arm back, you're not going to be able to run very fast. And if this arm is fully extended, it's going to be really hard for this person to run fast. So if this person and this person both have their arms extended, they better make that pass immediately, like that. Because anytime that they don't do that, don't have a quick pass, then they're going to be slowing down in the zone. So the push pass helps there. But I think if this hand were a little bit lower, and that elbow is a little bit bent down in this area, that you could actually make a good push pass down here as well. And I think a lot of coaches do that. If I were going to do the push pass, that's what I would do. There's a push pass. Again, we got the high arm coming here. If I were going to do a push pass, but then look, this is our national team, guys. And look at this. This is out to the side. Okay, it's not straight back. It's kind of out to the side, and she's got to come across her body to put it in there. Okay, so let's look at the underhand upsweep pass. So these are some girls that I coach. That's a state meet up at Buchanan one year. And if you look at the difference here, and it's a pronounced difference, her hand is bent and down here rather than being high and straight back like maybe the girls behind her here, okay? It's down here. And she actually hasn't alternated running mechanics too much. And this girl coming in, rather than on the downswing putting the baton in, is putting the baton in on the upswing, the foreswing of her arm, not the backswing of her arm. So what I want to tell you about this being less of an alteration of running and mechanics is pretty much visible right here. Oh, I guess I'm going to, you know what? I have another picture. I'm going to show you that picture again. I'm sorry, I'm out of order. So disadvantage of down sweep, sprint mechanics are altered. We talked about that. Must be exact timing. There's more chance the baton will be dropped if we have to do it real quickly, if we're in a rush to pass it. More chance the initial pass will be missed because that high arm, every time you move your opposite arm, is going to be moving around, and it's really hard to hold it still. And if you do hold it still, then you're going to be slowing down. And the concept of free distance is flawed. So let's look at that a little bit. The whole concept is free distance. If you look at that pass up there, you say, wow, look at those guys. They are getting everything out of it. They have full extension back and forward. The problem is, as soon as those arms are extended, they're not running very fast. They're not running very fast. Now we have a push pass down here, a low push pass down here that looks a whole lot better. Okay. The running mechanics aren't there, and both these guys are running fast. Okay. And if we look in the middle, this guy here has been running 2 or 3 steps with his arm out. So this guy's going to run up on him real quick, and the baton's going to slow down because they're not going to be at nearly the same speed when they mesh. So really, the gains that are made in this free distance are going to be offset, or more than offset, by slowing down because of the altered sprint mechanics here. So don't fall for the farther away you are and make that pass, the better it's going to be. And here's another thing about the overhand pass and also the push pass, okay? It can't be made without that free space. It can't be made without it. And it's usually, and I would tell you 90% of the time, that space to make the pass and the space needed to make the pass is manufactured by the athlete coming in, okay? It's kind of like judging a fly ball, right? You don't want to run up because if you do, you can't make the pass. So you're going to back off and you're going to make that pass where you have the space to be able to make it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that, back off, and we're going to slow down the baton in the most critical part of the race, in the part of the race that we need to be good at, and we're not going to be good at it because we're going to slow it down there. And this is what happens when you don't give the space. Okay. There's Reggie Bush. Okay. And those guys at Helix were going to run under 40 seconds maybe. And what happened? Incoming runner runs up, not room to make that down sweep pass. The pass doesn't get made, and they don't get to the state meet. Okay, so here are the Brits making. Now this push pass looks kind of cool. They both look like they're running pretty fast there. Okay, they got a great stretch there, but look what happened. All right, guess what? They are done. They are done. Okay, they're just crossing the middle of the zone. If you look here at the 20-meter mark now, let's say they're 20 meters in, he's 22 meters in right now. There's not a whole lot of space in front of them. How's he going to recover, and how's he going to recover to make that pass before they get to the end of the zone? So a missed pass here is just disaster for you if you're passing in the right place. And they are passing in the right place. We talked about that. But a missed pass here just makes it terribly, terribly difficult. You're going to have to come to a complete stop to be able to make that pass. So advantages of the underhand pass. If you miss it the first time, you got another time to do it. You're not leaning. You're not off balance. It's not going to break your initial rhythm of sprinting. It doesn't require exact timing or precise spacing. You can make it with space between runners. You can make it with runner really close, and you could make it even side by side, and you could even run past runner and make an up sweep pass. You just hold it up and the outgoing runner could get it. So it doesn't require that exact timing where you have to go hand, boom, and then hit it because you're not altering running mechanics, and you can run side by side pretty fast. Palm down is a better target. It's not moving. Okay, you can hold it steady a whole lot easier without slowing down. And the disadvantage for that is the shrinking baton. And if there's one thing I can tell you, this is why coaches, our national coaches, our college coaches don't use it, because when we pass, and I don't know if you can see me or not, because here, I'm going to put myself back up here for a second. I might be able to see myself. Maybe not. Okay, let me go here.
We can see you. It's okay.
Can you see me? I just can't see. Okay, here. So what happens when you upsweep is the outgoing runner's hand is going to be down like this. The baton's going to come in and up underneath into the hand. It's going to be taken into the hand. And the problem is we don't have a large piece of baton showing here so that we can hand it off to the next person. And what if it came in and it was there? That would just be really bad. Whereas in a push pass, the hand is facing the other direction, right? And the baton is coming in here, and the baton goes end over end, and you have enough to pass as you go. So is that a disadvantage? Yeah, but it can be mitigated very easily. And there are different ways to do it. Now, if you don't teach kids what to do and they have a short baton, what are they going to do? They're going to stand up and they're going to bang it on their hip. Okay, that's what they're going to do. You've probably seen that a lot of times, but that slows down. They take a funny stride there, and that slows everything down. So what do we do when the baton shrinks? Well, when it's here, when the arm moves, okay, and I'm going to show you this, and it's going to be hard to see. We are going to slowly rotate it. Do you see my thumb there? I'll turn a little bit. Rotate it on arm swings up in our hands so that then we have that there. And you're going to say, oh, that's a deal breaker. How do we get people to do that? It's too much. We're just going to do a push pass or an underhand pass. No, it's not a deal breaker. When do you practice this? You practice it when you're warming up dynamically and doing all your skips. And every kid who runs a relay has got a baton, and they start with a baton here and they move it up as their arms are swinging. They move it up, inch it up in their hand. And by 5 arm swings, it's there and it becomes a non-issue. They do it automatically. Do it right-handed, do it left-handed, so they know they can do it in any position on the track, whichever runner they're going to be. All right. So proper sprint mechanics are maintained during. Okay, I'm gonna minimize myself again here. During an upsweep pass. So if you look at this, the outgoing runner, he's, we don't want to run with that arm straight back because we're not going to have, real good running mechanics when we're doing that. If you look at him there, he looks like he's starting almost. He looks like he's in his acceleration phase of 100, although his hand is slightly out. I mean, maybe his hand at this point would be coming in this direction, but what we've done is we just modified it there. We haven't really modified the upper arm at all. Okay. He's just got a nice open hand and coming back. So he's in a position where he's running really fast as he can. And they're in the middle of making a pass. So that you can't underestimate how great that is for this outgoing runner not to have to slow down when that pass is made. Okay. Here are the girls again. This is what I wanted to show you before. Look at Mariah there. She looks like she's just running a 200. Okay. Her hand maybe is a little bit back, but she's in the middle of making a pass, which is awesome. Okay. You wouldn't know that if you didn't see it happening right there. And I tell you, these girls didn't slow down. Fast girls ran 46 something in the 4x1. Okay. Here's a really, now I'm not saying the upsweep underhand solves every problem that you have. And can you make a bad pass? Sure. If the outgoing runner doesn't take off at the right time, or it takes off, too early, it could be all kinds of things to make it bad, but I told you it's a safer pass. So look at this bad upsweep pass. And what do you see there? Okay. You see the outgoing runner with about 11 meters of acceleration. He didn't take off. And the incoming runner on the left just ran right up his rear end. Okay. He has to come to almost a complete stop there and hand the baton to him. But the big thing is, if we had been doing a down sweep pass or a push pass and we'd run up on that runner, that pass wouldn't be made. The fact is that pass was made, and it was a legal pass, and it wasn't the best pass in the world, but we were able to complete it. We lost that race by 3/100ths of a second to these guys over here. And if we had made our pass deeper in the zone and we had taken off, we would have won the race by, probably 0.2. But we still got on the podium, and that was a good thing. So anyway, what I'm saying is you have room to screw up when you're going underhand. If he's trying to put his arm back up high at this point for a push pass or a down sweep pass, that pass isn't going to occur. They're going to tangle. They're both going to stop. He's not stopping. He's not stopping. Only he's stopping. The other way, both of them would come to a complete halt to make that pass. All right. Personnel considerations. Tim, how are we doing on time?
You're fine. You're absolutely fine. We're only 45 minutes in. So
okay, good. I'm talking as fast as I can here. I'm going to try to get through. So, okay, you might consider first leg. Good starter. Of course, you want a good starter there. They're coming out of blocks. Good turn runner. Maybe, you don't want to put maybe your longest, lankiest people there. Maybe someone with that, a smaller kid that can run a tight turn. Maybe someone who's having trouble receiving the baton. They just can't get it. They don't take off at the right time. Maybe a shorter person in stature, and maybe your fastest person. I've done that more than 5 times probably. Put my fastest runner first. And the reason I've done that is because I can pass it deeper in the zone. I know they're going to catch the outgoing number 2, and we can get a psychological advantage. We can get out fast. We can get the lead, and we can make people maybe panic and come after us and take off too soon or do something else. Okay, second leg, good baton handler, taller, maybe a lefty because the baton's got to go in the left hand with number 2. Good speed endurance. They've got to run long. They got to run that long straightaway. They're going to be running 120, 25 meters and maybe faster than the third leg, but not necessarily. I would like to have a fast second leg. A lot of teams put their best runner as second because they eat people up on that straigaway. In my mind, I don't have to have my best runner there, but I want a fast runner there, a good runner, maybe a taller runner, and maybe faster than the third leg. Okay, so the third leg is kind of the notorious place where we hide people once in a while. But if you get out to that good lead and 1 and 2 have run really fast, you can afford to have your third leg be possibly your slowest runner. Now, you might have personnel that make it better for you to put a fast runner there. I know Bolt ran third leg for Jamaica many times. So it depends on who you have. But again, we want a good baton handler, maybe a shorter person with well-developed speed and endurance. And 2 and 3 have to be good baton handlers because they have to take it and give it. 1 and 4, they only have to be half as good because 1 only gives it and 4 only takes it. So then 4, not necessarily your fastest person, but an aggressive, resilient person who handles pressure well. I've put my slowest person there many times and dared teams to come and get us. What you don't want to put there is a person who's not your fastest and who's not resilient, who's going to crumble when the competition starts coming up on them there. You want to make sure you want a mentally strong kid there that can take getting past if they do and come out of it well. And these other kids, you coach them up and they realize that it's never this person's fault. This person's going to run as fast as they can. We put people in the order we thought we were going to do the best at. And so this person never gets the, oh, you made us lose thing. All right. Teaching the relay, progression for teaching, stationary with receiving hand back. That's just standing there and putting a baton in someone's hand. Stationary with arm swings and a verbal cue. Okay. Then we can jog with a verbal cue and without. If we're jogging, we could do it on a line somewhere, or we could do staggered sprinting side by side. And that's kind of like running a fly with or without a verbal cue and pass, after we've got in like a 30-meter fly. And that's a real good way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, develop max speed, and also work on your relay. Practicing the exchange, you got to simulate racing speed to be accurate, so you can't do it too many times. More is not better. So, I would say a maximum of 3 times in a practice, to practice a pass. If it doesn't get done by then, you make adjustments, you come back and you do it another time. Use spikes, have an adequate run in. Practice the exchanges together, first and third and second and fourth on the same turn. So you can watch both of them and we're not wasting time. Or maybe, do 2 and 4, and practice the second exchange, 2 to 3, maybe on another day, or come back and do that, and let 1 and 4 go and take starts and do whatever else they got to do. Coaching points. Warm up with batons. I talked about that. That's how you move the baton up in your hand. That's how you get kids used to batons. If they drop them on the track, you can have all kinds of torture for that. That can be a no-no on your track. View from a distance. You can't get right up on them because you don't have that sense of where they're going to mesh if you do that. So you need to stand far back. I would say at least 30, 40 meters away so that you can see whether or not your spacing is correct and make adjustments for that, or whether or not the outgoing runner took off at the right time. Vary the lanes and conditions. Run in lane 2, run in lane 9, run into the wind, run away from the wind. Get your kids used to dealing with adversity. And if you want to know how good you're passing, time the baton through the relay zone, through the exchange zone, from the time it enters to the time it leaves. If you make an early pass, I guarantee you're going to take a lot more time to get through that zone than if you make a later pass. And so you'll know that, and that's a way you can see how efficient you're being. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to show you a relay here from Arcadia. This video is really bad, but I just put it in when I got home tonight. Watch it, and then we can talk about a couple of things here. Rio Mesa's in it. We're out in lane 6 or 7. I'm just going to play it and let you watch. Whoops, it didn't play. Let me go back. Okay, we tried that before. All right, here we go.
Sarah, Roosevelt, Crenshaw, Cesar Chavez, Coolidge, Poly, Rio Mesa, Notre Dame, and Jesuit. Rio Mesa, Jamison Jordan leading off very quickly, and they are moving. Eyes again on Sarah on the inside. Robert Woods, All-American track and football man, anchoring. Rio Mesa with the big lead. Polly, Sarah. Oh my. 40.69, the number 2 time in the country this year. Rio Mesa moving the sticker on the track. Number 3 all time in Arcadia Invitational history.
All right, so that probably was the most excited I've ever been as a coach, to drop under 41 seconds. And our kids didn't run a perfect race. Our last pass there was early in the zone. We could have run faster. If you saw it, and I don't know if you did, on the second exchange, you saw my kid lined up in the outside of his lane, running the tangent and coming across, and how that pass could have been made there. So you can line it up, you can line up, and you can see that there. You can also see how we went underhand the whole race. We made smooth passes. We didn't slow down with the outgoing runners, and it really helped us as we went along. So if you have any questions about that, make sure you ask them in chat, and we'll try to address them. Oh, okay. I want to show you this again. I want you to watch the second pass.
Coolidge, Polly, Rio Mesa, Notre Dame, and Jesuit.
Okay, so we're out
Rio Mesa, Jamison Jordan,
third from the left. Now you're going to see here. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to let it go. I don't know if you saw him there, but I don't have time to do that now. So we're going to go to the 4x4. That kid, Blake, was in the outside of his lane. He ran across, and we had a great pass and really extended our lead through that second exchange that was there. All right, 4x400, not nearly as complex as the 4x1. So personnel considerations, all 200 and 400 and 800 runners, and of course 100-meter runners too. First leg's going to use blocks, so they got to know how to start. So it's probably not going to be your 800 person in the first leg, and you got to be able to judge a 3-turn stagger. You know, we know we're going to have to run past the finish line to make that pass most likely. So you're looking at a 200, 400 person there. First leg, I would say, or second leg might be an 800 person, because you got to cut to the inside when you hit the stagger. As you've gone around that third turn, you're going to be able to cut, and 800 meters have experience doing that. Third leg, you got to run well in traffic and be smart about moving outside. So you're not running outside the whole leg, running longer than you have to be. And the fourth leg has to be aggressive, resilient, and tough. Those would be my considerations for the 4x1. So the 4x4. The importance of this is it's the last event in a meet, and it's going to set the tone for how you feel when you leave that track meet. It can win or lose a meet for your team, a dual meet. And even if you're losing a meet, if you run a great 4x4 and you win that, it's kind of like, yeah, at least we're going away with a victory. Make it a privilege to be on the 4x4. You got to find ways to build that up, and make it a tradition for other team members to cheer on your 4x4. Alignment. Okay, so it's a 3-turn stagger. The first runner is going to run the entire lap in lanes. Okay, and this is kind of hard to see here. But the staggers are like the first runner on a 3-turn stagger out in lane 9 is going to be way out here. And the first pass is going to occur well past the finish line. And then the runner's going to break. Okay. So we have to complete that handoff in a lane. Second runner's going to run the first turn in his or her assigned lane. Breaks for the inside at the marker. So number 2 gets it over in here. We're running in lane here. Here's our marker. And then we can break to lane 1. We don't want to make a really tight, sharp left-hand turn here, because you're going to be running a longer distance if you do that. Okay. And you're not going to be running as fast. What you want to do is take a gradual run into lane 1 if you're the second runner. But don't let these people inside of you, you have to be aware of where they are, and you don't want to lose your position if you've got a good position and you're out front. So run for the tangent on the far curve. Third and fourth runners are going to line up at the start of the passing zone, right over here. And they're going to take off, and they have a 20-meter passing zone as they're there. So locate The outgoing runner needs to locate the beginning of that 20-meter passing zone, and the official will put you there. And the official will put you in the lane he or she wants you to be in, okay? So you're gonna visualize a go area about 10 meters out for the takeoff on the outgoing runner on the third and fourth runners. The last 110 hurdle mark on the track is a really good place to look at that. Okay, so that gives you a mark on the track already. A lot of meets you can't put down tape, you can't do that. So when do you know how do you know when to take off? Well, that last 110 hurdle mark, if you practice that in practice on your exchanges, your kids are going to know. Now, runners come in at varying stages of fatigue. Obviously, if someone's coming in and foaming at the mouth and not going to make it and staggering, obviously you're not going to take off quite as hard. So outgoing runner, position yourself in the outside of the lane. Let the incoming runner have the inside. The incoming runner is going to be tired. Shouldn't have to do a lot of work. Just get the baton to you there. Your left foot can be back facing the infield. You want to always face the infield because if you turn your back to the infield, again, you lose your bearings and you might not take off in the right direction as you're looking back. And then you want to box out. So get to the outside of that lane and give yourself some room. Don't let the other person push you in and squeeze you down into the inside of your lane. Make eye contact with the incoming runner. It's really important. They want to see you. They want to know you're there. Cheer them on. When the incoming runner hits the go area, which is the last 110 hurdle meter mark, outgoing runner takes off. You turn and take 3 powerful strides. Now, I'm going to go back to this. There are different ways to do it, but I have my runners turn completely around and take 3 powerful strides. Turn your torso to the left at that point and extend the left hand in like a high handshake, straight out, and then take the baton. The incoming runner just should be able to throw it out there. You have to take it. That person shouldn't have to aim at anything. They just need to put it out. You need to take it, okay? Now, if you watch our national teams, sometimes they take off, and a lot of high school teams take off, and they never turn around. They just watch the whole time that they're running. Well, unless you're in first place, I don't like to do that because if you're looking backwards for the whole time you're accelerating, there are people in front of you that have stopped or that are crossing over lanes. And for me, it's just a high risk to take if you don't turn around and see what's in front of you on those first 3 strides and then look back quickly and get that baton. So I wouldn't do that unless I were always in first place and do that. Plus you accelerate better when you're not running like sideways crab running and looking back the whole time. And when the pass is completed, the outgoing runner's got to stay where they are and cross when safe. Don't cross in front of people. That would make a problem. Incoming runner, got to locate the outgoing runner. Now this person's dying. Remember, this person's going to be not feeling real good towards the end. Don't panic. Don't weave in and out all over the track because the officials might be moving your teammate. Just the last 20 meters or so, you've got to find where your teammate is, 20 to 25 meters. Know that they're going to be moving toward lane 1 if you're not in first place because the officials are going to push them down and towards the inside of the track. Run through the outgoing runner. Again, you've got to run through that runner. Don't let up because you're almost there because the outgoing runner is going to run away from you and that's going to be a bad pass and you're going to come to a complete stop. And we know that that's not good because the baton slows down to 0. Extend the baton at the appropriate time. Okay. Don't wait until the outgoing runner turns around or wait until the outgoing runner turns around because you don't want to be running like the Statue of Liberty when you're tired because you can't run very fast like that. So when the outgoing runner turns around, then you're going to stick it out there and it's the outgoing runner's problem at that point. Don't run with that baton extended. And then step into the infield when safe. Okay, when you practice this, have a legion of runners in a dual meet. I would make it okay with the team that's coming or whoever's hosting you that you can run 2 or 3 4x400s. That way you train a legion of people, and like I said, make it a privilege to be able to run on the 4x4. Practice at the end of your practice session. When you're practicing the 4x4, do it when the kids are tired. Okay, they're going to be tired in a meet for the 4x4, so do it in practice at the end after you've run a workout. Practice multiple exchanges at the same time. So put 4 or 5 pairs on the track and run them at each other to simulate congestion. And the outgoing runner should carry the baton at least 50 to 80 meters after they get it. Okay. The outgoing runner, I don't know if I said it back there. I think I did. Will get the baton in the left hand and switch it to the right hand when safe. So always receive in the left hand, always switch to the right hand when safe. Okay, Tim, did I make it in an hour?
We are pretty close, 64 minutes. So you probably were right on. Yes.
There we go. I did it as fast as I could, and I hope it wasn't too fast, but we can always answer questions.
All right, go ahead and unshare your screen.
Doing that.
Very good. Thank you very much. So yeah, we got about 10 minutes for questions and got some good questions. A couple though, would like you to explain again the go patch. How do you determine, you said 4 steps. So could you go through how the kid determines the go patch?
Yeah. Okay. So you're going to figure out where it needs to be, obviously, but let's say we're just starting training and we're going to give somebody 18 steps, let's say. So we're going to go back 18. That's a pretty common distance. I would never go less than 16 because that means your incoming runner is going to be slowing down. But let's go back 18, put down a piece of tape at 18 heel toe steps, okay, back from where you're standing at the beginning of the exchange zone, and then go put down a piece of tape and then go 4 more heel toe steps and put down another piece of tape. And you basically have a rectangle on the track now. That's your go patch. Now, if you mesh too soon, then that go patch moves back. Maybe you go 20 steps and then do another 4. Maybe you go 22 and do another 4. Maybe you go 16 and do your 4. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's how you set it up.
And you're waiting to see the foot step in the patch.
No, you don't have to see that. I used to tell my kids that, but there are times the foot doesn't hit the patch. When you completely go over the patch. And if you're waiting to see the foot in the patch, I really have them take in the whole picture. And when they believe the torso is, project that patch up as a cylinder, okay, or as a column. And as they come into that, and their body is in the patch, that's when you're going to take off.
Okay, I think you answered it by showing the video, but Coach wants to know, was your fastest time ever overhand or underhand?
Oh, all my fastest times ever were underhand. I started using the underhand in 1990, probably. So yeah, our boys teams they averaged like 41, 2 over a 5-year period. And all that stuff was underhand. Our girls teams ran 40, 46, 45, I think. And that was underhand. I really think that we beat teams by using the underhand pass. I really think we beat teams that had superior personnel. If you added up their 100-meter times and you added up our 100-meter times, there were teams that were superior to us. I just think we did a much better job in the crucial areas of the relay, which are the passing zones. And basically we did that because we used the underhand pass and we were able to extend the zone and push it near the end because we knew we'd be safer that way.
All right, very good. Interesting question from Coach Gray. How long does it take to usually develop a cohesive team, and do you put freshmen on a relay?
Well, you always put freshmen on a relay, not on a varsity level, maybe, but you want to make sure that your freshmen are learning. We have early in the season, we always have learning time, and I teach the top 20 sprinters on the team, 20 boys and 20 girls. We'll teach them how to do a pass and set up. So even if they're not on the team, they've got an idea and we have to slot somebody in as the season goes on. We do that. I guarantee you won't run the same relay team all year. There'll be some time when somebody's not feeling right, or somebody's got a little twinge, or somebody gets faster and replaces somebody else, or you as a coach get smarter and know you want to move, people around. You don't do that all the time. So I would like to have my team that I think I'm going to have in place by probably the midpoint of the season. I think I'd like to have that, but that gives us plenty of time at the beginning of the season to experiment and see who's fitting in there and who isn't. I had a kid, we were going to win the state meet one year in the 4x1. And I had a kid Well, it was that bad pass. Did you see the picture of the bad pass where the incoming runner ran right up the other runner's back and had to come to a complete stop? That relay team, we had our leadoff runner quit the season after CIF or after league finals. And for no reason. He wasn't mad. He just didn't feel like running track anymore. He liked football, and I think the football all-star game was coming up, and I'm saying, oh, God, man, we can win the state meet. We can win the state meet. So we had to substitute, another kid in there that was not nearly as fast, maybe 0.3 of a second slower, maybe a little more than that. And we ended up losing on that bad pass by only 3/100ths of a second. So I just think we did a much better job because we were able to, do better in the zone.
All right, let's get a couple more in here. What are good times for a boys and a girls team for times inside the exchange zone?
Oh man, you have to really, that's a tough thing. There's 30 meters there, right? So you got to know it's all relative, with the kids you have. It's a flying 30. Okay. So how fast, can kids fly a 30? Well, your varsity boys can run it under 3 seconds, that if they're good, fast kids, they can run under 3. The girls, 3.5 seconds, would be pretty fast for them. 3.8 seconds. But you've got to see where your kids are at the beginning of the season and make a pass significantly later in the zone, at least 20 meters in, and get some times. And then compare those as the season moves on, and know that you're pushing, and know that when you're doing the upsweep pass, the underhand pass, that incoming runner doesn't have to be afraid about running up the back of the outgoing runner, because you're still going to you can make pass side by side at that point. And that's how you save yourselves, I think. So anyway, it all depends on who you have, the personnel you have that are running through the zone, as to how fast that can be. Well, how fast can they run a flying 30? If you've got 2 guys that run 10.5, then guess what? You're gonna cover that pretty fast, because there's the acceleration factor is taken out of it, because the person getting the baton is already accelerated, right? So you can run that in 3 seconds. But you'll have to look at your personnel and do some timing for yourself to see where you think you need to be. But time an early pass and time a late one and see what the difference is there. I think you'll be amazed.
Very good. Here's a good question, actually. So Coach Bauer says, the first large diamond at the beginning of exchange zone, we just ignore that, right?
Yep.
That's true.
It's not there anymore. It's invisible. Maybe schools will paint them out. It costs a lot of money to have somebody professional to come in and, and redo that for you. But if I were the track coach, I'd get a piece of refrigerator box and cut a big triangle in it, off the other triangle that I had. I'd go out and I would paint a big triangle over the little triangle. And then if there's a way to obscure the other one, I would do that if I could find the color to do that. If you had any, urethane or latex left over on your track, try to get rid of it.
Every time we've had a new rule come into play, there's going to be a meet somewhere where somebody's going to argue with you. So it's good to know the rule.
Yeah.
Right? All right, let's stop with it. Here's a good one here. Do you ever practice the whole 4x1 in practice?
No. Never done it. Never done the whole 4x1 in practice. Just because in practice, you don't get a race simulation in practice if you're running a full 100 meters or 120 meters out there. You just don't. You're going to be slower. So what we do is we have about a 50 meter run in. There's not a lot of adrenaline there. And I found that if we have a 50 meter run in or so, that it approximates our speed in a track meet. So nope, we don't do it. We always do it with spikes on, and we never do it more than 3 times in a practice, because after that you're spent anyway, and you're not gonna get a true read on how it goes. But I found that coming in 50 meters at practice is a good approximation about what a meet would be like.
Excellent. So we're at our 75-minute mark here. So I'd like to thank Brian FitzGerald very much. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank
Excellent
you.
Presentation.
Great. Good luck, everybody, with your season. Yeah. If you
can answer this last question here from Coach Bowers. Do you know if track will move past league finals this year?
Well, not being a high school track coach anymore, I'm helping out. I'm retired, guys. I'm helping out as a volunteer at Ventura College. I know that we have 5 meets. I don't know. I think it all depends on, the virus and the curve and where we are.
As of right now, right, we have a state meet scheduled for the end of June, but we'll see. So
yeah, I saw that there. If we can just keep the numbers down, I think we can have some track. We can salvage a little bit of the season, but I'm not completely sure that that's going to happen. And maybe some districts will choose to, and others will choose not to. It's up to your people at your district if the state okays it.
There we go. Thank you so much, Brian. All right, we have about 15 minutes. Hopefully you'll join us, get a little break and have a cup of tea or a bathroom break. We'll see you at 8 o'clock with Willie Banks, drills and training for success in the triple jump. And once again, thank you to Brian, and hopefully you'll be with us tonight with Willie, and then back next Tuesday, Jeff Messer again, and 6 more sessions next week. So once again, thank you, everybody, and good night. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you.